everybody. This is Bonnie Barker with BonnieBayCrochet.com. Today I want to do something a little bit different. I actually found my very first crochet project ever. I started this when I was 7 years old and I finished it when I was 9. This is one giant granny square, and I made it large enough to fit my single bed when I was a child, and I trimmed it with fringe. And I'm going to take a close look at this with you. And my main purpose today is twofold, is to encourage you if you're already a crocheter and you get a little frustrated with your mistakes. I just want to encourage you that that is part of the learning process, and just say it's okay if things aren't perfect. And the other thing is, I want to encourage any of you who are new to crochet, or maybe you want to start learning how to crochet but you're afraid. And I just want to show you, I'm going to show you up close personal right here. I'm going to show you all the mistakes that I've made with my first project. But I also want to say that this project is very special to me. Well, anyway, let me just show you some of the mistakes and some of the problems with this, and I really want this to encourage you. So here are some of the very first stitches I ever did. These were started by the lady who was my neighbor, who was instructing me how to do this, and maybe some of these were hers as well. But afterwards, these are some of my very first stitches that I ever formed, and I don't know if you can tell, but they look kind of different. They don't have that same look that they should have had. And that's because I wasn't forming them properly. I was using a very bad technique. It was not being corrected. So I continued it on and on. And the stitches were very tight, very small, which is not unusual for a beginner. But as you kind of go down through the later rounds, look how big the stitch is. God, isn't that hilarious? But just to show you that when you're learning something, it's okay if things are not perfect. And another problem that I had, well, this is more of a design problem. Do you see how this turning chain is very visible and runs throughout the project? I'm going to show you in just a few minutes, should you want to start one of these for your very own. I'm going to show you how to make an afghan just like this, but without that line. I'm just going to do one little correction so that you don't see that. And when I joined my colors, obviously, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was learning and I was growing, and that's the main thing. Even here, I did the here we go, did the chain, and the colors are not quite right there. So I just wanted to show that to you. Oh, one more thing. You probably can't tell by what I'm showing you here, but the color, the dye lots vary quite a bit from one end of the afghan to the next, especially with the yellow color. And that's just because I didn't buy them all at the same time. I bought the skeins one at a time, as I could afford to buy a skein of yarn, as you can imagine a child would do. Also, I have learned a better way to cut the fringe. You can see the fringe is just pretty uneven, a lot of different sizes here. And that's because I cut each of them one at a time and didn't have knowledge of how to make more of this. Okay, well, let me go ahead, and I want to show you how to start your very own. For this project, I'm going to be using Red Heart Super Saver, and this is just some extra yarn that I had left over. And as you can see, this is what we call a worsted weight, which is a number 4 on that little picture of the ball of yarn. That just indicates the thickness of the yarn. This is a very commonly available yarn at most places where yarn is sold. And each skein has approximately 384 yards, 7 ounces total in weight. And I am also going to be using some contrasting colored yarn that I found. This is what we call an ombre, where it changes colors, and I think it would look really nice contrasting with the solid blue. And again, this is some leftover in my stash just for the demonstration. I'm also going to be using a size I or 9 crochet hook, or 5.50 millimeters. And as always, I'm recommending that you have a yarn needle and a pair of scissors. Let's go ahead and start. We begin with a slip knot, worked like this. I have many other videos on my channel that aren't listed under the beginning video series should you need a lot more support with these particular steps. This is called the slip knot. Now we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, after we do that, we're going to join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch, very first chain, and then we just pull it through and pull it through, and we end up with a little, I like to call this a donut seed or a little Cheerio circle. Now we are going to chain 3, and this chain 3 is going to count as a double crochet. Now we're going to crochet going right into the center of that circle we just made. We're going to do 1 double crochet, and double crochet is made by wrapping the hook, inserting into the hole or into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's pretty much the stitch that we're going to do throughout. Again, I have many of these stitch videos separate, so you want to spend more time watching those. Now I'm going to chain 2. 1, 2. Remember I said this chain counts as a double crochet, so this is going to be 3 double crochet in a cluster form. So we're going to go ahead and do 3 more, going right into the center there. 1, 2. I'm going to try to slow down. 3. We're forming corners here. Then we're going to chain 2. 1, 2. There's another corner. And we're going to do 3 more. And also notice I'm crocheting on top of this thread. It'll be an easy way to hide it so we don't have to do anything special to this when we're done. It's 2. Again, these are all just double crochets. 3. And we're going to chain 2. 1, 2. And then 3 more double crochets. And you should be able to see the square forming here. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to chain 2 more. 1, 2. And then now we're going to join with a slip stitch through the top of that first chain. Okay, just like that. Now this is where what I'm going to show you varies a little bit from the Afghan that I showed you from my very first project. I think this is going to improve your project. Slip stitch to the next stitch, slip stitch through the top of that next double crochet, and then right into this hole here, slip stitch. So we've slip stitched all the way to the chain 2 space. Now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Again, this chain 3 is pretending to be a double crochet, or it's going to count as a double crochet. So now we're going to make the corners. We're going to chain 2, double crochet 2. Then we chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to do 3 more double crochets right in this same chain 2 corner. 1, 2, 3. Now, every time you get to a corner, no matter how big your project is, you're going to crochet this. Now, this is obviously the starting of the round because the chain 3. And I'll show you what we're going to do with the next corner. Okay, now we're going to just chain 1 in between the clusters. And then the next corner, we're going to work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and then 3 more double crochets, all in that chain 2 corner. 1, 2, 3. Now, if I'm going too fast for you, I'm sorry. This is still just double crochets, but if you ever want to slow me down, if you look in the bottom right here, if you're watching the right-handed version, it's on the left, on the side over here for the left-handed version, and you can click that little gear-like item, and then you can check, or from that menu, you can choose which speed to have the playback be played at. It can slow me down or you can speed me up, whichever you want. If you're watching from a phone, if you look up in the upper hand corner for right-handers, it's going to be over here for left-handers. 3 little dots, like dot, 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 vertical dots. Click on that and you can also choose your playback speed. All right, so now after we've made this corner, we're going to chain 1 and we have another corner. This is, by the way, is probably the hardest part, is just starting. Once we get 2 or 3 rounds done, it does get easier. Chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets in the same place. Oops, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. Again, just double crochets. Now we chain 1 and we have 1 corner to go. 1, 2, 3, and let's pull that hair out. Okay, chain 2, 1, 2, and then 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3. After that, we're going to chain 1, 1, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that chain, right like that. And let's take a look at what we have. Okay, now I'm going to work 1 more round with the blue, and then I'm going to show you how to change colors. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to slip stitch to the corner, slip, stitch, and then slip stitch in that chain 2 space, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, this is the substitute for a double crochet, and we're at a corner. So for that first corner, we add 2 double crochets to that chain to make up 3 stitches, chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets in that chain 2 corner. Now this is where we begin what we're going to do for many, many rounds. We chain 1, and every time where you see a chain 1 space in between the clusters, we're just going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. Now we've come to a corner. Now if you're very much brand new to crocheting, what you may want to do is take stitch markers or take a little piece of yarn to mark the corners to remind you that you need to do something different here. So every time you come to a corner, it's 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. It seems like that's all we're doing right now is corners, and in fact, that's what we're doing mostly as we begin the project. But once the project becomes quite sizable, the corners are going to be something you do every so often. And what we're going to do here, chain 1 and 3 double crochets. That's what we're mostly going to be doing. Chain 1, another corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 1, 2, and 3 more double crochets. Okay, now we just chain 1 and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, and it looks like this is our last corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, get more yarn and 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and then just 3 double crochets in that spot, and chain 1, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch of the round. But not only that, but we are also going to change our yarn. Now, in my original project, I worked 9 rounds of the green, and then I switched and worked 9 rounds of the yellow. Now, you can really do any color striping pattern you want. You can just make it all one color, or you could use a different color, using up all the yarn from your yarn stash, whatever you want to do. But let me show you how to end this. I'm going to give it a little chain, and I'm going to pull it kind of tight, and I'm going to cut a generous strand. Notice I didn't cut just a tiny little inch, but I cut a generous strand, and this is so I can hide the strand in my work using my yarn needle, which is right here. Now, I may actually be crocheting over more of this, but let me show you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go get my next color. Okay, before I join the next color, let me just also say this is going to be the front side with the way the stitch looks. You'll get used to the way it looks once you've done this a few times. And this is the way the back side of the stitch looks. Okay, now remember that strand that we crocheted all the way around? I'm just going to go ahead and carefully cut that strand, making sure that I did not cut my stitches. Now I'm going to go ahead and hide this loose strand. Sometimes I choose to crochet over them, but I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate right from the beginning how to hide these strands. Okay, and I usually hide them with the back side facing. You can go ahead. Let's go ahead down into this next stitch right here. I'm going to show you how easy this is to do. Now I'm going to actually run it underneath these double crochets just like this. And I believe that is plenty. That is plenty of hidden space to keep that hidden. So I'm going to clip this very carefully, making sure I don't hurt the fabric. Okay, so now we have our square, and I'm going to add the contrasting color. I'm going to go ahead and add. You can add to any corner. It doesn't matter which one. So I stick my hook in through there, and I'm going to do a little slip knot, give it a nice tug, and make sure it's the size of the hook. And then I just make a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to be crocheting over this strand as I crochet this corner. Remember, when we have the corner, that counts as 1 double crochet. This is 2, 3, and now I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to double crochet 3 more. 1, 2, 3, and since that strand has been crocheted over by 5 stitches, that should be plenty to hide. I'm going to go ahead and give it a trim, and that little strand is gone forever. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and then 3 stitches here. 1. Oh, I like the way these colors are changing. So that's 3. Now we're going to chain 1, and we've come to a corner. So we're going to work 3 double crochets. Pull up some more yarn. Chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets in that corner. I will tell you, as a beginner, that one of the most common errors that I made was by putting only 3 stitches or 3 double crochets in these corners. And if I search in my Afghan, I can easily find where I did that. And then I came back later and formed a corner and just kind of left it as is. But if you think that that's going to be a problem for you to remember that, just go ahead and get a little stitch marker or even a piece of contrasting yarn. You can just kind of, just put it in the corner there. Or if you even wanted to, let's say, tie it. This is a very makeshift stitch marker, but it works if you don't have one and you don't want to run out and buy something right now. Or you can even use like an old earring that will secure to the corners too. That works very well. Okay, so I'm going to continue on. We're going to chain 1, 3 double crochets. I'm only going to do a couple more of these for you because it really is quite simple. Okay, chain 1 and 3 more double crochets. I hope I didn't say single crochet earlier. Double crochet and then chain 1. And okay, so now we have our stitch marker to remind us that we have a corner here. And so we'll take that stitch marker off and we will work a corner, which is 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3. So go ahead and work this all the way around it. I'll show you the join. After working that all the way around, I've chained 1 and I'm going to join with a slip stitch to that first double crochet, which happens to be that turning chain, or rather the chain 3. Now I'm going to continue using this color. I'm going to slip stitch the next stitch, slip stitch in the next stitch, and slip stitch all the way to the chain 2 corner, and we're going to do it all over again. We're going to chain 3 and we're going to work the corner, which would be 2 additional double crochets because the chain counts as 1 double crochet, chain 2 and 3 more double crochets, and I'm going to show you what happens in just a second here. 1, 2, 3. Now chain 1. Now as you go around each round, now we have 3 places where we just put the 3 double crochet clusters. So you see how that increases as you go around? Well, what I want you to do is go ahead and finish this round, and then I will show you how I'm going to fasten off. Although if you're going to make an Afghan, you just continue on round and round until the project becomes as large as you would like it to be. After joining with the slip stitch, I'm going to go ahead and give it a chain and give it a tug. And I'm going to clip a generous piece of yarn so that I have something to thread into my yarn needle, and I'm going to hide this loose strand. I'll show this to you one more time. And remember, going to do this on the back side. I'm going to go ahead and bring this down into the stitch. Sometimes it doesn't want to go down. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to work this under these 6 stitches right here. And once I've done that, that looks like it's very secure. I'm going to be sure to clip this close, and then there you go, pull that strand over it so that bright green doesn't show underneath. Now, of course, this is just a small sample, but you can do this until this piece fits your bed, or maybe the size for a baby blanket or a crib. There's no limit to what you can do with this. Now let me show you how you can make fringe. Remember how I showed you my fringe and how each little piece seemed to be a different size and length? Well, this is how you can cut many of the same length and very quickly, and they will all be nice and even. Okay, so this is just a piece of notebook, but it's a little, sturdy notebook that I'm going to use as my form. Now you can also cut a piece of cardboard, or you can use a small book, and depending on the size that you use, you can make any particular size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind the string loosely around my little notepad here. Make sure that you don't use something that's super special to you, because you don't want to have any problems, leaving cuts or anything in it. Okay, so now that I do that, of course, if I'm making an afghan, I'm going to need hundreds of these. And now I'm going to take a pair of scissors, and I'm going to cut the strands just like that. Of course, if I'm making a lot, I'm going to use a bigger piece of scissors. And ta-da! We have our strands. Well, let's go ahead and pull that one out. Our strands are all the same. Now all I have to do is show you how to apply them to your project. The first thing I like to do, let me go ahead and move this so that you can see what I'm doing, is I like to line up the pieces right there, and then I hold it with my finger, and with the front side facing, let's go ahead and start with the corner here. I'm going to bring the hook up through the two top loops. Okay, pull it through like this, and then both of those pieces over the back, and then pull it through and give it a tug. And that's how you attach your fringe. I'm going to do a couple more for you, and then I'm going to show how you can make a bigger tassel. Okay, so we line these up. Bring the hook up from the back through those two top loops. Pull it through, yarn two pieces over the back, and pull it through. There's two pieces. Let's do a couple more. Line up the yarn carefully. Put that in like that. Pull it through, yarn over the back, and pull it through. Okay, let's take a look at that. And you see how even this is? Now, of course, if you don't like, the evenness, you can actually trim it even more even, should you like. Now, I want to show you how you can make a tassel. Okay, I usually take about 5 strands. Now we have 5 right here. And this is kind of what I would do for ponchos, or, if you don't want to do individual strands like I just showed you, this is what you can do in the corners or in the places where the chain 1 spaces are. Okay, so I'm going to line these up as evenly as I can, fold them over, and they're pretty even. I mean, not perfect. You'll need a little bit of a trim. And then we stick our hook in. I'm coming in from the back side, and the front side is up here. Put all 5 strands through like that. Put all the yarns, there's 10 of them in there, and then pull them through like this. Give it a tug. Let's go ahead and look at that. How's that for a nice little tassel? Of course, I can get my scissors, and I'm gonna trim this up a little bit to make it a little more even. And let's see, let's try that one again. Yeah, it's close enough for the demonstration, but you do get the idea. Okay, so that's what you can do. You can make little tassels for the corners. I mean, you can make little, in fact, this one right here can make a nice little doll blanket, or, a little quilt for them to hold. Well, I hope you enjoyed making this with me today. Well, I hope you enjoyed kind of stepping back in history with me a bit and seeing my very first crochet project. This really is the very first thing I ever made. Started it when I was 7, finished it when I was 9 years old. And in case you want more specifics, because I'm not writing a pattern for this, you don't need one. Each of these sections have 9 rounds. There are 9 bands of color completely, and then it's trimmed with just a single applied fringe like I showed you. Well, I hope you enjoy this and have lots of fun. If you still are not a subscriber, if I can get you to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything that is coming your way, and the notification bell and thumbs up if you enjoyed this project. Well, that's all we have for now, but I will see you next week. God bless. Bye-bye.